Welcome back, dear students. In the last video, we introduced subroutines. We look at some basic knowledge about subroutines, that is, the different vocabulary being commonly used in subroutines. We went on further to have some examples, as you can see, and we perfectly answered the first two questions. And in this video, we are supposed to conclude with this question number 3 and question number 4. Okay. Let us look at question number 3. It says, the Cramer's rule for solving a pair of simultaneous equations is as follows. Consider the equation a1x plus b1y equals to c1, a2x plus b2y equals to c2. The solution is as follows. Calculate mx and m, where m is equals to, so I have a1, b1, a2, b2. Then mx is obtained by replacing this a1, a2 by c1, c2. Concerning my, c1, c2 is simply replacing b1, b2. And we are having the formula that the discriminant for a matrix PQRS is given by what? PS minus QR. That is the product of P and S minus the product of Q and R. From there now, the unknown X and Y are calculated as X is equals to the difference between mx and between the X is obtained by dividing the magnitude of mx by that of m, and Y is obtained by dividing the magnitude of my by that of m. A part says write a subroutine that takes in the entries of a 2D matrix, returns its determinant. So from here, is it a procedure or it is a function? If you set a function, then you are correct. And for those who don't know why it's a function, it is because in the question they say it returns the determinant, that is, it returns a value. So we shall write our subroutine that takes in the entries of a 2D matrix, that is PQ, RS, and then it returns the determinant, which is what? The product of P and S minus the product of Q and R. Let us go to our IDE and solve this A part. Okay, we are in our IDE, new program. I have my hashtag include standard input output.h. I have my int main. From there now I can move now to my subroutine. So I have now we assume that our determinant contains integers only, and we know that the product and difference of integers gives us integers. So my function returns an integer. So I have int, the name of the function is det. It takes as parameter p, q, r, and s. That is what we have. And we are supposed to return, so let me just put it directly, that is return, what am I returning? P times S minus R times Q, that is the determinant, as you can see. Some of you might be confused. Note that Q times R is the same thing as R times Q because multiplication is commutative. So let us run this and see whether we have an error to correct. So in case I never mentioned it, take note that when you are writing a program containing subroutines, always include your int main first of all, and anytime you write a particular subroutine, make sure you run your program to see whether the subroutine itself contains error. That is what we call a unit testing. You are testing the different units, that is the different subroutines of your main program. So it is a unit testing with respect to our program in such a way that, because if you don't test each subroutine, by the time you'll be having an error when you are calling a different subroutine in the main program, it will be difficult for you to trace such errors. So this is example 3.c. I save it on desktop. Okay. Good. We don't have any error. For those of you who do not want to include the main method yet, you realize that if I don't include the main method, if I run, I'm just going to have one error, which is the reference to win main. As you can see, undefined reference to win main, meaning that there is no main program, there is no main subroutine in my code. So if you are writing a subroutine and this is the only error you have, then just know that it is simply because you have not yet introduced your int main. We move to the next question. Okay, the next question says, write a main program that requests the coefficient of the two equations above, print the equations and print the solution of the equation to one decimal place. If they are already precise in decimal place, it means that our solution are supposed to have float values. Okay, let us proceed. I hope you know the float values are simply because we have division to be done. So I have my variables. I have int a1, a2, b1, b2, c1, c2. Printf. An equation is of the form ax plus by equals to c. Printf. Enter the coefficient a, b, and c for the first equation. So scanf, I'm going to take percentage g, percentage g, percentage g, and that will represent a1, b1, and c1. That is what we have. So if I run that again, but now this time around for the second equation, at this level I'm just changing the ones to 2. So that is what we have. And the question says after taking the coefficient, we need to print the equation. So I will have my printf first of all, /n. So I will say equation 1 percentage dx plus percentage dy equals to percentage d /n. That is a1, a2, b1, c1. Then I will just do a copy paste. Dear student, you should be used to copy and pasting because somebody that will waste the time writing the same block of code again, that won't be okay. Let me just delete this because it's not needed. So equation 2, I have the same thing, but this time around it is 2, 2, 2. Let us run and see. No error. So what do I have? So if I say 4, 5, 6, then 2, 9, 10. Equation 1, 4x plus 5y equals to 6, 2x plus 9y equals to 10. Perfect. It displays our equation normally as it is supposed to do. Let me just remove this /n here. Good. So now, what do we have? So I need other variables. I need m, I need mx, and I need my. And we said that m is obtained by calculating the determinant of a1, b1, a2, b2. So m is going to be the determinant, that is, I'm calling that. When I open the bracket, it gives me all the parameters I need to have. And this is a1, the other one b1, the other one a2, and the other one b2. That is what we have. mx, we saw that mx is obtained by replacing a1, b1 with, by replacing a1, a2 with c1, c2. So I will still have this. Then I will just replace a with c. That is what we have. I do a copy paste. Now this time around I'm calculating my, and my is obtained. This remains a. I'm replacing b now with c. This remains a. This remains c. So dear students, as it was given in the question, look at it. As it is given in the question, m is having a1, b1, a2, b2. mx, you see that a1, a2 is being replaced by c1, c2. And when it comes to my, it is B1, B2 that is being replaced by C1, C2. That is why when I called the function get, I replaced the different parameters. For M, when you compare P, P represents A1, cure B1, R A2, and S B2. Then for MX and MY, you are just seeing that C is being replacing, as you can see. Okay, let us move. Remember that. Oh, sorry. Seems as I had a little problem with the video, but as you can see, X and Y are float values, so I decided to do typecasting. Why typecasting? Because I'm dividing two integers, and the division of two integers will result to an integer. So that's why I use typecasting to make sure that my value will be a float. Same thing for Y. And now this line of code is printing the solution. So let us try and use our code to see if it works. So if I run this, I enter 5, 4, 2, then I enter 4, 5, 6. Those are the two equations. And they said the solution to the equation above is x equals to -1 and y equals to 2. If we test, we see that 5, -5 plus 8 is supposed to be 3. When you test here, we have -4 plus 10, which gives us 6. So the second one gives the correct value, but here we are not having the correct answer. Let us try and see if there is a problem with our solution. A1, B1, A2, B2, C1, B1, C2, B2, A1, C1, A2, C2. It's okay. It seems as the typecasting is not the best. So what do we have? Let us change the other type right from here. So yeah, we use float. Same thing here. So than to say float twice, I will just come and use x, y, then here percentage f, and at this level 0.0f, so that it should be displayed with two decimal places. Good. And sorry, here is supposed to return a float. So that is what we have. So no need for typecasting again. So if I run, those are the two equations. We have negative 1.0 and we have 2.0. If we test, then we have -2 plus 6, which is 4, correct? And here we have -5 plus 12, which is 7, correct? So our solution works. But now let us enter a case where the determinant of m will give us 0 and see what we have. So if I enter 1, 2, 3, then I enter 1, 2, 6, 5. We see that it gives an abnormal value simply because when you take the determinant 2 times 2, 2 minus 2 times minus 1, sorry, 1 times 2, 2 minus 1 times 2, which is 2, that gives us 0. And the question said that in case the value of m is 0, we should print that the solution is not possible. So this should be done at this level. So if m is equals to 0, m is 0.0 because it's a float, what should we do? We simply print f the pair of equations do not have a solution. Else, this is the else part now that is supposed to be done. For you to know, if you want to know how I push them, it's just by pressing the tab button. So if I run it again, a pair of equations do not have a solution. Perfect. So this is our program that solves a pair of simultaneous equations, dear students. I hope you enjoy. Let us move to the next question. The next question says, the compound interest is calculated depending on the principal and the rate provided on the loan. Also, the duration of this loan matters. Write a subroutine interest that takes in the principal, that is an integer, the rate, which is a real, and returns the interest, and the interest is also a real. Using the formula, interest is equal to principal times rate divided by 100. So, let us write this first subroutine. So I will create a new program. My hashtag include standard input output.h, my int main. Good. Now, first subroutine, which is interest, and they say it's a function because it returns a real number. So float interest, it takes two parameters, the principal, which is an integer, and the rate, which is a real number. And what does it return? It simply returns principal times rate, all that divided by 100. That is what it does. Let us run and see if there's an error. I will save it as exercise 4.c. Zero error. So we are okay. We move to the next question. I hope we are still at the same track because the question says subroutine interest that takes in two parameters, principal, which is an integer, rate, which is a real number, and we know that real is float. And it returns what? The interest, which is calculated as principal times rate divided by 100. And since we are returning the interest, which they said is a real, that is why the return type is a float. We move to the next question. The B part says, write another subroutine info that takes in the year number and the interest and then displays the interest at the end of year dash is dash, e.g. the interest at the end of year 1 is 550.25. So in this case, there is nothing we are returning. We are just taking in values and we are printing a line of code. So in this case, it is a procedure. And dear students, for a procedure, what is the return type? If you said void, then you are correct because all procedures return no value and hence the return type is void. So I come and I write my void info. You say it takes the year number, which is int year, and the interest is a float. So now this interest is different from this because this is a subroutine and this is just a parameter. So we are printing, what do we print? Print f. The interest at the end of year percentage d is percentage f. Let us say to two decimal places, percentage point 2f slash n. So we are printing the year and the interest. Good. So if I run this now to see whether there is an error, and there is no error. So everything is good because this is what they asked us. We are taking in the year and the interest and we print this line of code. We move to the next question. The C part says, write a main program that reads the principal, the rate, and time, which is the year. Then calculate the interest for each year and displays a message. Note, at the beginning of a new year, principal increases by the interest. Example, if the principal is 5,000, the rate is 10% and the time is 3, it should display. The interest at the end of year 1 is 500 because 10% of 5,000 is 500. And they say after the new year now, the interest adds to the principal, meaning that at year 2, my principal is now 500, is 5,500. That is why the interest is 550, simply because 10% of 5,500 is 550. And the 550 adds now to the principal, which becomes 6,000 and 5,500 plus 500. That gives us 6,050. And we take 10% again, it gives 0.5. That's why we see the different interest with the different values as you can see. Then at the end, it should print the total interest on 500 at a rate of 10% for 3 years is 1,655 francs. Total amount to receive is this. So you see that this particular value is obtained by summing all these different interests. And now this value we have here, that is amount to receive. Normally, amount to receive is the sum of the interest plus the principal. So here is supposed to be 6,655. So there should be an error here because amount, as we know, since class 6, amount is calculated as principal plus interest. Nevertheless, this is the problem that was given to us. How do we interpret it? I have a subroutine, a function that calculates the interest. I have one that displays appropriate message. So what do we have here? First of all, we see that every time we are displaying the same message, but what is changing is the year, as you can see, because you are printing for the different number of years. Yes, that's the first thing. So since you are repeating the same thing, it means that you are supposed to use a loop because I'm printing a message again and again. And which loop are we using? Is it a count loop or a condition loop? How many times are we executing the loop? Based on the number of year, correct. So if I know the number of year, it means that I know the number of time I have to iterate. So it is a count loop you are going to use indirectly. The for loop. What happens also? At any time of the loop, our principal is increasing. Every time of a loop, our principal is being increasing. And we need to know the total interest because at the end we need to print the total interest. So there is a variable that at the end of every loop is being increasing by the value of the interest, dear students. So that is what we have. And at the end, there is an amount that is being printed. So we know that there is a for loop you are going to use, and our counter depends on the year. At the end of each loop, interest is being incremented, principal is also being incremented. So another one thing that you need to know just then. Anyway, we shall see that as we'll be writing the program. Let us proceed. So I'm inside my int main. So I have my int principal. Note that this variable must not be the same as this one. They must not be the same. So I have my int principal. I have the time, which is the year. And we say it's a for loop, so I need my counter. Then I have my float, interest, amount, and what again? Yes, I think everything is okay. And now we know that interest is being increasing throughout the loop, so it should be initialized. And since it increased to addition, it should be initialized to 0, dear students. So what do I have? For I equals to 1, because I starts from 1 here, 1. I is less than or equals to the time, and I increment. What happens now in the loop? Interest becomes interest plus this particular calculations we are doing. That is what we have, dear students. Yes, because interest becomes interest becomes interest plus the interest after calculating the principal and the rate. And sorry, the rate is supposed to be given and they say it's an integer. Whatever we have. So let us understand ourselves. We are calculating the interest at the end of a particular year. That is what we have. Because since our variable is being incremented, I could simply say interest is interest plus equals to the same thing like saying interest equals to interest plus this. Because this is actually the function calculating the interest. And since at every instance of the interest is being increasing, and that's the yes, interest is being increased after every loop. That is why I initialize it to 0 first of all. So this is the interest we add. When we move to the next year now, interest increases by that value, but it is somehow we are going to have an error. So it is better I set instead amount to interest because at the end amount is taking all the different interest plus the principal. So interest is equals to this. This is what we have. We calculate interest first of all. Now amount is equals to amount plus interest. That is what we have. And principal becomes principal plus the interest, because we said at the end of every year the principal increments by the interest. That's what we have, dear students. So at the beginning of every year, we calculate the interest. That interest adds to the amount, and it also adds to the principal. And now the principal is what we are going to calculate here. So at the end now, amount is equals to principal plus, so amount will be equal to the amount, because at the end of the loop, amount is just having the sum of the different interests, but amount is the sum of the different interests, which is what is stored already in amount, plus the principal. And also we need to print this particular statement. So after obtaining the interest, I need to call the info method. That is, I take the year, and at particular instance, my year is I, and the interest is interest itself. That is what we have. So before that, I need to get the values. So printf, enter the principal, a static programming just for your reason. Scanf, percentage %d, comma, ampersand, principal. So I will just copy this for the time and the rate. Enter the rate, and the rate is an integer also. Then enter the time. So rate is a float. So here rate is supposed to come here and not up. So rate instead is percentage %f, and we are taking rate. Time is an integer. So that is what we have. Let us run and see. Enter the principal 5,000. Enter the rate 10%. The time 3. Interest at the end of year 1, 500. Interest at the end of year 2, 550. Interest at the end of year 3, 605. Good. So now we need also to print the amount. So printf, the total interest on percentage %d, which is the principal, at a rate of percentage %1f for percentage %d years is percentage %d. So principal rate time. But now which value now is storing the total interest? That is the problem. So I will just say amount before, because look at this level, at the end of the loop, amount is having a total interest. So I will just copy this amount here, this formula. That is, after I have displayed the amount, now I can now add the principal to it to have now the real value of amount. So printf, the total amount to be received is percentage %d. So /n, same thing here. So I turn 0. If I run now, I enter 5,000, rate 10 time 3 years. It says the interests are okay, but now total interest on this. So this is not our principal value. The rate is okay, the year is okay, but the amount is not being displayed. So there's a problem at this level. Total amount also is wrong. Sorry, amount is percentage %d, so percentage %1f, and the total amount to be received is percentage %1f, which is amount. We saw that there's a problem with the value of the principal. Who can determine why principal is not correct? It is not correct because principal is changing values inside the program. The value for principal is changing because it's being incremental and you cannot use it there again. So the better way to do that is that at this level, instead of calling interest with principal, I will simply call principal, I will call the interest method with principal plus amount. Now you might ask yourself why? Simply because at year one, the principal value is simply what? The amount we entered plus zero. We calculate the interest, we store it in amount. The next year now, I am now calculating the interest on the principal plus the amount I had. That's why I have principal plus amount. And if I run this one now, let us see principal 5,000 rate 10% times 3. And you see that everything is being correct. The interest on 5,000 at the rate of 10% for 3 years is 1,055. Note that there are many ways a different student could solve this because when I'm solving, I'm always making as much as possible to reduce the number of variables to use. And do not forget that in case there is a problem you are not getting with this, make sure you write in the comment section for me to review with a way to better explain to you or to write it in a way that you can better understand. And if you write the program on your own and it gives the correct output and you do not follow this approach, do not forget that there are several ways of solving, there are several algorithms for solving a unique problem. And the problem is just the amount of resources consumed and the amount of time, which for this level is not that important. I hope you enjoyed the video. Do not forget to like, to subscribe, and to share for our community to grow. But before that, let us run the last time and enter different parameters. So I'm going to enter principal 1 million, 1 million, the rate 25% for 5 years. What am I going to have? So total interest on 1 million at the rate of 25% for 5 years is 2,051,757.8, and total amount to be received is 3 million. That is it, dear students. So I hope you enjoy the program. Thank you and see you in the next lesson where we shall be seeing the different ways of passing parameters, which one method has been given already, and how to pass arrays as parameters to programs. Thank you and see you in the next video.